I know everyone else is going to do it, but I have to do it.
Roadhouse.
All right. What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
But it's not the original. It's the new Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal. He's buff. Let's talk about it.
Is there a hospital nearby? Is it like too far?
About like 25 minutes, I'd say.
I just slapped you. Are you all right?
What?
So ex-UFC fighter Dalton takes a job as a bouncer at a Florida Keys roadhouse, only to discover that this paradise is not all it seems. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal, directed by Doug Liman, this one is rated R. There's violence, language, some nudity. The original came out in 1989, so it has that 80s charm. Of course, some will call it 80s cheese, but hey, at the time, it was charm.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Starred Patrick Swayze, and even though it was technically a product of its time, and I feel as if some younger kids will watch that movie today and say, Austin, it's just so cheesy, but I say it's cheesy in the best way. It knows exactly what it is, and Patrick Swayze kicked all kinds of ace. And so personally, I didn't want this to be the same as the original. I wanted them to take the character in a different direction, the story in a different direction, but still focus on the things that we love, the action and the Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
It's making me hungry. I haven't went to Texas Roadhouse in a while, but their rolls, man, come on. Although last time I was there, they overcooked my steak, and I was pretty pissed off. And so in this movie, Dalton's not this legendary bouncer who's been here for a while. Dalton is an ex-UFC fighter, and Jake Gyllenhaal takes a bit of a different approach, still a very movie star-ish performance, meaning every time he comes on screen, there is a rush of adrenaline, but there is also this thought planted in your head like, man, I wouldn't want to mess with this. He just looks like he's seen things and been places. I'm sure that's what people think about me.
Right.
And in the original, he's hired to clean up this town in Missouri. In this movie, he's hired to be a bouncer at this place in Florida, but there's some stuff going on in the town that's a little more separated from this Florida Roadhouse, meaning there's a lot of stuff happening in the town, and occasionally it spills over into the Roadhouse, but the direction that this movie takes us steers away from the Roadhouse much more than I anticipated, and a lot of the big action sequences, they don't even take place there. We are in different locations. We're, on a boat speeding through the water, not even close to where the Roadhouse is. Now, obviously, some things that happen utilize our prize location, if you will, but yeah, they change things up. I'm a little up and down on how they change certain things, the approach of Doug Liman. By the way, Doug Liman, he's our director. He directed Edge of Tomorrow and American Made, two movies that I love, but more recently, he directed Locked Down and Chaos Walking, and so he's been on a bit of a cold streak. I'm not going to say this turned it around like, oh my God, Doug Liman is back as a phenomenal director, but he tried some things within the action sequences here that I actually really appreciated, and there is a swag to this film that his last two movies have not had. It's not as intense as Edge of Tomorrow, because that's like one of my favorite sci-fi movies of that decade, but I feel like he did a nice job compared to his last couple of projects. And so they do this thing with the action sequences, hand-to-hand combat, which is really nice. The choreography was really solid. Jake Gyllenhaal's going to commit to that. And you have someone like Conor McGregor, he's going to commit to that. I found that really entertaining, by the way. Jake Gyllenhaal versus Conor McGregor, I never thought I would see the day, but I saw it. And it was cool. But Liman does this thing, and it reminds me of what Matthew Vaughn did in Kingsman, where he just changed things in certain ways that allowed you to approach that specific battle a bit differently. So you're in it with Jake Gyllenhaal when he's taking on these guys outside of the club, on a boat, on the edge of the water, wherever it may be. So it's a really close-up look at it, but they use a wide-angle lens with the close-up so you can see a little more of what's going on, and it gives it this different, distinct look and feel that almost made these action sequences a bit more epic than they actually were, and you combine that with really cool choreography, and this is just It's a cool movie that oozes a lot of swag. Now, there are definite issues with the script and the story and the familiarity, but when you're just talking about the look and the feel and the action sequences and Jake Gyllenhaal's charisma and charm, or occasionally lack thereof, it's also a darker movie than the original. And, Gyllenhaal's Dalton does some things in here. I'm like, oh, whoa, that's okay.
Hey! Take it easy.
So they kind of take this in a different direction. You have a love interest. Daniela Melchior does a nice job. They didn't really explore that like they do in the original. You don't feel the chemistry as much in this movie. And, you know, the bad guys with Billy Magnussen and, of course, Conor McGregor. Then you have the police officers. There's some things going on in the town, the corruption and blah, blah, blah. We've seen this a million times before. And if it wasn't a roadhouse movie, I would probably look at the actual storyline and the revenge quest and what's happening as just really familiar and somewhat bland. Now, they integrate humor in here. And again, whenever Gyllenhaal's taking people on, it's really exciting. But when you just strip all those things away and look at the story, what's actually going on? It's not all that impressive. And I'm not just saying that because, oh, well, Austin, of course it's not. It's a reboot of Roadhouse, so they can't take that and do too much more with it. Well, here's the thing. They try to. This is way more grand than the original Roadhouse. It goes in so many different directions, but I feel as if they lost the simplicity along the way, and we just don't get all that much of him as a bouncer, and that's like the heart and soul of the original. Dalton as a bouncer and just really simple things that happen in this one location, but this movie doesn't do that. It takes it in all sorts of directions, and that becomes like the backdrop of the movie, when I feel as if every time that was in the foreground, I was enjoying it so much more. So it starts to lose itself as it goes, and the deeper we get, the more exciting and big it gets, but at the same time, it loses that soul and that integrity that I really enjoyed at the beginning of the film.
Roadhouse.
And so is the Roadhouse remake fun? Yeah, of course it's fun. I'm actually bummed this is just on streaming and not in the theater because I feel as if it would have played really well with the crowd. But it's also a movie that a lot of people, I'm sure, will pick apart, and it's one that you can pick apart very easily. There are also sequences that just become a bit repetitive and kind of bland, but at least Doug Liman has a style. He's stuck to his guns, and without Jake Gyllenhaal, I don't know how I would feel about this movie, but because of Jake Gyllenhaal, it's at least exciting. And to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of exciting movies this year, so hey, that's cool. Before I give you my score, thanks for watching. How do you feel about the original Roadhouse? Which one is better? This one or the original? Leave your responses down below, and if you want to drop a like on this video, that would be awesome. Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
Features a somewhat generic storyline, but Gyllenhaal's Dalton brings a rush of adrenaline every time he is on screen. Lyman brings a unique style that feels inconsistent, but it provides plenty of entertainment. The film is bigger, self-aware, and occasionally funny, but it lacks the charm of the original. A bit bummed I didn't see it with a crowd. Thank you all so much for watching this video. How do you feel about Roadhouse? And are you watching it on Prime this weekend? A lot of stuff coming out. We're going to talk about all of it. Ghostbusters tomorrow. See you soon.
Roadhouse.